Hi, everybody. We've got a really interesting topic for you today. It's a question I get a lot of times, and it can become a real point of conflict between you and your supplier. What is the MOQ, the minimum order quantity? A lot of times you'll be placing an order with a supplier and they'll tell you we can't take a 2,000 piece order. We have a 10,000 piece MOQ. And you think, that's just something that they make up because they don't want to deal with small customers. And that's really not the case. The MOQ, minimum order quantity, is something that the factory has to calculate to say, if we have to invest this much time and energy into getting our factory ready to produce this product, it doesn't make sense to do that for 200 pieces. Depending on the product and how it's manufactured, it may be typical to have an MOQ of 500 pieces if it doesn't require a lot of fancy equipment that needs to be set up. If it requires tooling and equipment or specialized materials, it might be 5,000 or 10,000 pieces. So on what basis does the factory decide the MOQ? There's really two general buckets. One is equipment time and setup. So let's say they have a machine that's going to make this product and it takes 3 hours to set up the machine. It might, in some cases, take an hour. It depends on the equipment. In other cases, like CNC machining, it could take 8 hours. They have to calibrate it. They may have to load some tools inside the machine to particularly make your product. They may need to make test samples to make sure it's calibrated properly, that the materials are correct. That all takes time, and as we know, time is money, right? So the other reason that they might have an MOQ is raw materials. If you're asking for proprietary material, let's say it's a piece of fabric, a particular type of fabric you've designed, and they have to buy 1,000 yards, that's the minimum amount they can buy of that fabric. Or you want to custom mix a particular color of plastic, and the plastic supplier only wants to sell, 2,000 pounds, then their supplier is giving them an MOQ. And that means they can't make 2,000 pounds of plastic, might mean 10,000 pieces of your final product. And that's where they get their MOQ. So that always leads to the question of, what if I don't need that many pieces? What can I do? There is an opportunity to negotiate MOQ, and I really encourage you not to look at this as a win-lose situation with the supplier, that you're going to try to get them to eat that extra cost, because that's not a great way to go into a partnership with another company. So you want to be mindful of what their drivers are. So the factory might be willing for you to pay the setup fee. You could pay for 2 or 3 hours of their staff's time to set up the equipment, right? You're still not covering the cost of that equipment being out of use for those 2 or 3 hours. They could have been making parts for another company that would have brought them profit, and instead they're setting it up for you. So you want to find out, what would that charge be? What would that setup charge, is what we call it, be? They might ask you to pay for the minimum order quantity on the material. Let's say it's, again, 2,000 yards. So you might buy that material and keep the rest of it in their factory and use the quantity you need for the first order. That might be enough for them to agree to a smaller quantity. The other opportunity is they might be able to add your order to another customer's order. So let's say they're making a product that's their design. So they can, and they still don't want to set up the machine for less than 10,000 pieces. But if someone else is ordering 15,000, you could order 3,000 on top of their order. But you might have to wait. That other customer may not have an order for 3 weeks or 3 months. So that's the worst part of it. They also may charge you a higher price per piece to help cover some of these costs that we've talked about in this list. And that's also understandable. So again, minimum order quantity is not an imaginary number. It comes from factors that drive the factory's profitability, but you do have an opportunity to work with them to see if there isn't something that you can do if you really can't make that quantity. Just like all of our episodes here, we encourage you to go to our website, International Trade Resources, to look at the classes we have available. The bundle is the one we really encourage you to take, and learn everything you know to be able to successfully place that order overseas and bring your product here into the United States. Thanks, everybody.